I spent $180,000 renovating my son's house. Then my daughter-in-law threw a dinner party and told her friends I was the housekeeper. "Serve the food," she ordered. "Refill the drinks. Clear the plates." I smiled and said nothing. That night, I packed my bags and disappeared. When they woke up the next morning and found the note I had left on the kitchen table, they realized they had made the mistake of their lives. But let me take you back to the beginning, to the moment that changed everything, to the night I became invisible in my own home. But before we continue, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and write in the comments where you're watching this video from. We love to know how far our stories travel. It was a Saturday evening in October. The doorbell had been ringing every 15 minutes since 6 p.m. as Natalie's friends arrived for what she called her autumn soiree. I'd spent the entire day preparing, roasting a herb-crusted rack of lamb, making individual butternut squash tarts, arranging a charcuterie board that could feed 20 people, baking a chocolate torte from scratch. My hands smelled like rosemary and garlic. My back ached from standing for 6 hours. I was 70 years old, and I'd just worked harder than I had in years. "Dorothy." Natalie's voice cut through the kitchen like a knife. She never called me Mom. Never called me Dot, like my friends did. Always Dorothy, said with just enough edge to remind me I was something less than family. I wiped my hands on my apron and carried the tray of lamb to the dining room. 8 women sat around the table. Natalie's book club friends. Though I doubted they'd read a book in months. They were all in their late 30s and early 40s, wearing designer dresses that cost more than my monthly Social Security check. The kind of women who got weekly blowouts and posted every meal on Instagram. "Oh, perfect timing," Natalie said brightly as I set down the platter. Then she turned to her friends with a smile. "Everyone, this is Maria. She helps us around the house." The words hit me like a physical blow. Maria, not Dorothy. Not even my mother-in-law. Maria, a name that wasn't mine. A name that erased who I was and reduced me to hired help. None of Natalie's friends even looked at me. One of them, a blonde woman with lips so inflated they barely moved when she spoke, just waved her hand dismissively toward her empty wine glass. I stood there for a moment, the empty tray in my hands, waiting for my son Brandon to say something. Anything. He was sitting at the head of the table in the dining room I'd paid to renovate, at the table I'd helped them buy. But Brandon just looked down at his plate, his face flushed with either embarrassment or wine. Probably both. "Maria," Natalie said again, sharper this time. "The wine?" I smiled. The kind of smile I'd perfected over 4 years of swallowing humiliation. The kind that doesn't reach your eyes. "Of course," I said quietly. For the next 3 hours, I was a ghost who served food and cleared plates. I refilled wine glasses. Natalie had spent $85 on a single bottle of Pinot Noir. I'd seen the receipt. I brought out the salad course, the main course, the dessert. I collected dirty plates, scraped food into the trash, loaded the dishwasher, and I listened. "Natalie, this house is gorgeous," one of the women said, looking around at the recessed. Lighting I'd paid for. The crown molding I'd insisted on, the hardwood floors I'd helped refinish. "You've done so well for yourself." "Thank you, Chelsea." Natalie beamed. "We've put a lot of work into it, a lot of investment. Investment. My $180,000 to be exact." But I said nothing. Another woman, this one with dark hair and a Cartier watch, that probably cost more than a used car, leaned forward conspiratorially. "Where did you find such good help? I've been looking for someone reliable for months. Mine keeps asking for time off." Natalie laughed. "Oh, Maria came with the house, basically. Very affordable. Came with the house, like a fixture, like an appliance." The women laughed. I stood in the doorway to the kitchen, holding an empty tray, and I felt something inside me that had been bending for 4 years finally snap, but I didn't show it. "Not yet." "Maria," Natalie called without even looking at me. "Can you bring out the coffee? And make sure it's not too hot this time. Last week you practically burned Chelsea's tongue." I hadn't made coffee for Chelsea last week. Natalie had. But correcting her would be pointless. "Right away," I said. I went to the kitchen and made the coffee in the $400 espresso machine I'd bought them last Christmas. As it brewed, I looked around at this kitchen, the white subway tile backsplash, $3,200, the quartz countertops, $8,500, the custom cabinets. $12,000. The professional grade refrigerator, $6,800. I'd paid for every single thing in this room. I pulled out my phone and opened the Photos app. I scrolled back through 4 years of pictures. Not family photos. Natalie made sure I wasn't in those. These were different photos. Photos I'd taken quietly, without anyone noticing. Receipts, hundreds of them. Invoice for kitchen renovation, $45,000, paid by Dorothy Harrison. Invoice for master bathroom remodel, $28,000, paid by Dorothy Harrison. Invoice for landscaping and hardscaping, $22,000, paid by Dorothy Harrison. Invoice for roof repair, $18,000, paid by Dorothy Harrison. On and on and on. I documented everything. Every check I wrote, every credit card charge, every bank transfer. Because something deep inside me, some instinct honed over 70 years of life, knew I might need proof someday. Tonight, as I stood in this kitchen serving coffee to women who didn't even know my real name, I knew that day had come. I brought out the coffee on a silver tray, sterling silver, $890. I'd bought it thinking it would become a family heirloom. The women took their cups without a word of thanks. Natalie was in the middle of a story about her recent promotion at work. So the VP calls me into his office, she was saying, gesturing with her wine glass. And he says, "Natalie, we're making you Director of Strategic Marketing." I mean, I knew it was coming, but still. Youngest director in the company's history. More congratulations. More praise. More wine. I cleared more plates. "Mom would be so proud," one of Natalie's friends said. "Oh, she is. She calls me every day to brag to her friends." Natalie laughed. Unlike some people's mothers who just, hover. She didn't look at me. But I knew the comment was meant for me. I picked up 3 empty wine glasses and carried them to the kitchen. That's when I heard it. "Honestly," Chelsea was saying, her voice lowered, but not enough. "I don't know how you stand having her here all the time. Doesn't she have her own place?" "She did," Natalie said. I could hear the fake sympathy in her voice. "But she sold it after her husband died. I think she was lonely. We felt obligated to take her in, She's Brandon's mother." "That's so generous of you," another woman said. "Most people would just, suggest a nice retirement community." "We've thought about it," Natalie said. And I heard something new in her voice, something calculated. "There's a really lovely place about 40 minutes from here. Independent living, activities, people her own age. We're going to bring it up soon. Gently, of course." My hands tightened around the wine glasses. They were planning to get rid of me, to ship me off to a retirement community, so Natalie could have her house, my house, to herself. I set the glasses down carefully in the sink. Then I walked to the dining room doorway one last time. "Is there anything else you need tonight?" I asked, my voice perfectly calm. Natalie waved her hand without looking at me. "No, that's all. You can clean up in the morning." "Of course. Good night." I walked upstairs to my room, the smallest bedroom in the house, the one that used to be the guest room until I moved in. I closed the door, sat on my bed, and took several deep breaths. Then I pulled out my suitcase from the closet. But before I tell you what I packed, before I tell you how I disappeared, I need to take you back 4 years. Back to the day I lost everything and gave away what little I had left, not knowing I was signing my own sentence. 4 years and 2 months ago, I buried Robert, my husband of 48 years. Lung cancer took him in 8 months. Fast enough that we barely had time to say goodbye. Slow enough that I watched him fade piece by piece. I was left alone in our Victorian house in the suburbs of Denver, the one with the wraparound porch where we'd raised Brandon, where we'd hosted every Thanksgiving and Christmas for nearly 5 decades. After the funeral, the silence became unbearable. Every room echoed with Robert's absence. His reading chair sat empty. His coffee mug was still in the cabinet. His garden tools hung in the garage, waiting for hands that would never use them again. Brandon came to visit 3 weeks after the funeral. He brought Natalie, who I'd only met a handful of times since their wedding 6 years earlier. They lived 90 minutes away, so visits were rare. "Mom," Brandon said as we sat in my living room, "how are you doing?" "Really? I'm managing," I said, which was a lie. I was drowning. "But you don't burden your children with that." Natalie looked around the house with what I thought was sympathy. "Now I know it was appraisal, Dorothy. This is a lot of house for one person," she said. 4 bedrooms, that huge yard. It must be difficult to maintain." "Your father and I managed," I said. "But Dad's not here anymore." Brandon's voice was gentle. "And Mom, I worry about you. being alone. This house is full of memories, maybe too many. That's when Natalie leaned forward, putting her hand on my knee like we were close. We have an idea. What if you came to live with us? I blinked, surprised. Live with you? Just hear us out, Brandon said quickly. We've been wanting to buy a bigger house. The kids are getting older, they need more space. But we can't afford the down payment we need. Houses in good school districts in Denver are expensive. If you sold this place, Natalie continued, her voice smooth as honey, you could live with us. You wouldn't be alone. Zoe and Tyler would love having Grandma around. And we'd take care of you. Like a real family should. There it was. That word. Family. I looked at my son, the boy I'd raised, the man who looked so much like his father it hurt. And I saw hope in his eyes. Hope that I could help them. Hope that we could all be together. How much do you need? I asked. Brandon and Natalie exchanged a look. The houses we're looking at, Brandon said, in the neighborhoods with good schools and safe streets. We'd need about $80,000 for a down payment. We've saved $35,000, but we're short. We'd pay you back, Natalie added quickly. Not right away, obviously, but over time. Or we could put your name on the deed. You'd own part of the house. I should have listened to that last part more carefully. Should have asked for it in writing. Should have protected myself. But I was a 70-year-old widow who didn't want to be alone. And they were family. Let me think about it, I said. I thought about it for 2 weeks. I walked through every room of my Victorian house, touching the walls Robert had painted, the floors we'd refinished together, the kitchen where we'd made 48 years of meals. But everywhere I turned, I saw emptiness, heard silence. Brandon called me every few days. No pressure, Mom, whatever you decide. But the kids keep asking when Grandma's moving in. They're so excited, that's what did it. My grandchildren, I barely knew them. Natalie had always been funny about visits, always had an excuse. But if I lived with them, I'd be part of their daily lives. I called Brandon on a Tuesday. Let's do it. The house sold in 3 weeks for $220,000. The market was good. After paying off the small remaining mortgage and closing costs, I netted $198,000. I gave Brandon $80,000 for the down payment. I kept $118,000 for myself, my safety net, I thought. My security. What I didn't do, what I'll regret until the day I die, was insist on being on the deed. Mom, it'll complicate the mortgage, Brandon said when I brought it up. The bank prefers 2 applicants, both with income. Your Social Security won't help the approval. We'll add you after we close, I promise. It's all in the family anyway, Natalie added with that smile. Why make the paperwork complicated? So I didn't push. I trusted them. The moving truck came on a Saturday in August. I packed up 48 years of my life into boxes. I gave away most of the furniture. It wouldn't fit in their house anyway. I kept my clothes, my photos, Robert's ashes in their mahogany urn, and my grandmother's china. Everything else, the life Robert and I built, I sold or donated. When I drove away from that Victorian house for the last time, I cried so hard I had to pull over. But I told myself it was for the best. I was moving toward something new. Toward family. I was so stupid. The first year was tolerable. Natalie was pleasant, if distant. Brandon was attentive. He'd take me to dinner once a month, ask about my day, tell me I was a huge help with the kids and the kids. Zoe and Tyler were why I stayed through everything that came after. Zoe was 8 when I moved in, Tyler was 5. They'd barely known me before. Natalie had always limited visits, claimed the kids were too busy with activities. But living together, we built a real relationship. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. and make them breakfast. Pancakes shaped like animals for Tyler, French toast with berries for Zoe. I'd help them with homework, read them stories at night, teach Tyler how to tie his shoes, help Zoe memorize her multiplication tables. They called me Grandma Dot. They hugged me without being asked. They made me Mother's Day cards at school. For the first time since Robert died, I felt useful, needed, loved. But slowly, subtly, things changed. It started small. Natalie asking if I could pick up the kids from school. Just this once, she had an important meeting. Then it was every day. Could I start dinner? She was running late. Could I do the kids' laundry? She was overwhelmed at work. By the second year, I was doing everything. Cooking, cleaning, grocery shopping, carpooling, laundry, yard work. I'd wake up at 5:30 a.m. to make coffee and breakfast. I'd pack lunches, drive the kids to school, come home and clean the house, do the laundry, go grocery shopping, pick up the kids, help with homework, make dinner, clean the kitchen, get the kids ready for bed. Natalie would come home at 6:30, eat the dinner I'd made, and go upstairs to decompress. Brandon would come home at 7, kiss the kids goodnight, and watch TV until he fell asleep on the couch. I was a live-in maid, but I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I was helping. I told myself this was what family did, and then Natalie started asking for money. Dorothy, the fence in the backyard is falling apart. We got a quote, $4,500 to replace it. We're a little tight this month. Could you help? I helped. Dorothy, the roof is leaking. $18,000 for repairs. We don't have it right now. I paid. Dorothy, I hate this kitchen. It's so dated. I found a contractor who can renovate it for $45,000. I paid every time. Natalie promised they'd pay me back. Every time I believed her. I told myself I was investing in the house where I lived. That it was practical. That it was smart. But I was really just desperate to feel necessary. To feel like I belonged. By year 3, my $118,000 safety net was gone. Completely gone. I'd spent $180,000, more than I'd kept for myself, on renovating a house I didn't own. For people who didn't appreciate it, I was living on Social Security checks of $1,300 a month. And out of that, I was buying groceries, putting gas in my car to drive the kids around, and paying for their activities when Brandon and Natalie were short on cash. I was broke and exhausted and invisible, but I kept smiling, kept helping, kept hoping that one day they'd see me as family instead of free labor. Until tonight, until Natalie called me, Maria in front of her friends, until I heard them planning to ship me off to a retirement home, until I realized I'd given them everything and they were planning to take even more. I looked at the suitcase on my bed. Then I looked at the filing box under my bed, the one where I'd been keeping all the receipts, all the bank statements, all the proof of what I'd spent, because a part of me, some wise part that survived 70 years, knew this day might come. I pulled out the filing box and opened it. Inside were hundreds of documents, organized chronologically. House purchase receipt, $320,000. Down payment, $80,000, paid by Dorothy Harrison. Kitchen renovation invoice, $45,000, paid by Dorothy Harrison. Bathroom remodel invoice, $28,000, paid by Dorothy Harrison, on and on. At the bottom of the box was something else. Something I'd kept hidden even from Brandon, the original house deed. When they bought the house, the mortgage company required the deed be in the names of everyone who contributed to the down payment. Since I'd paid the full $80,000, my name was on the deed. Natalie and Brandon's names were on it too, because they were taking the mortgage. But I was listed as a co-owner with tenancy in common, meaning I owned a percentage of the house outright. Brandon had promised we'd clean it up after closing, that we'd figure out the ownership structure later, that it was just temporary paperwork. We never did clean it up, and now, pulling out that deed and reading it carefully for the first time in 4 years, I realized something. I owned 33% of this house, legally, permanently, and with the $180,000 I'd put into renovations, I'd invested more than Natalie and Brandon combined. I took out my phone and called my friend Patty. She answered on the second ring. Dot? It's almost 10 p.m. What's wrong? Patty, is your guest room still available? A pause. Of course, why? What happened? I'll tell you when I get there. Can I come tonight? Tonight? Dot, what's going on? I'm leaving, Patty. I'm leaving and I'm not coming back. Another pause. Now, I'll put coffee on. The next call was harder. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the number for Helen Winters, a real estate attorney I'd met at a charity fundraiser 2 years ago. We'd stayed in touch. She sent me a Christmas card every year. I called her cell phone, knowing it was late but not caring anymore. This is Helen, a professional voice answered. Helen, this is Dorothy Harrison. I'm sorry to call so late, but I need a lawyer. I need a very good lawyer. Dorothy? She sounded concerned. What's wrong? I need to know my rights. About a house I partially own. About money I've invested. About, my voice cracked, about getting my life back. Tell me everything. I did. I told her about the $80,000 down payment, the deed with my name on it, the $180,000 in renovations I'd paid for, the 4 years of free labor. Tonight's humiliation. When I finished, Helen was quiet for a long moment. Dorothy, she finally said, you have a very strong case. A very strong case. Can you come to my office first thing Monday morning? I'll be there. And Dorothy? Bring everything. Every receipt, every bank statement, every piece of paper that proves what you've spent. I have it all. Good. Because we're going to make sure you get justice. I hung up and looked around my small bedroom. At the single bed with the quilt my grandmother had made. At the dresser holding my clothes. At Robert's ashes on the nightstand. We're getting out of here, Robert, I whispered. We're finally getting out. I packed quickly. Only the essentials. Clothes, toiletries, photos, Robert's urn. My grandmother's china, carefully wrapped. The filing box with all the receipts and the house deed. I left everything else. The furniture I'd brought from my old house. The books. The kitchen gadgets. They could keep it all. I just wanted my dignity back. At 2:17 a.m., I carried my suitcase downstairs. The house was dark and quiet. I could hear Brandon snoring from the master bedroom, the bedroom I'd paid to remodel. I went to the kitchen and pulled out a piece of paper. I wrote carefully, Brandon and Natalie, I am not Maria. I am not your housekeeper. I am not your maid. I am Dorothy Harrison, and I own 33% of this house. The deed is in my name. Check the county records if you don't believe me. I have also invested $180,000 in renovations, repairs, and improvements. I have receipts for every dollar. You will hear from my attorney on Monday, Zoe and Tyler. Grandma loves you very much. This is not about you. Dorothy. I left the note on the kitchen table, right next to the expensive espresso machine I'd bought them. Then I placed a copy of the house deed next to it. Just the first page, showing all three names, Brandon Harrison, Natalie Harrison, Dorothy Harrison. Let them wake up to that. I took my suitcase, walked out the front door, and drove away from the house I'd paid to renovate, where I'd worked like a servant for 4 years, where I'd been erased and renamed and devalued. As I drove through the dark streets toward Patty's house, I felt something I hadn't felt in 4 years. Free. I was 70 years old, nearly broke and homeless, but I was free. And they were about to learn that the housekeeper they'd dismissed, the elderly woman they'd planned to discard, the mother they'd taken for granted, she had claws. And she knew exactly how to use them. I woke up Sunday morning in Patty's guest room to the sound of my phone vibrating on the nightstand. It was 7:43 a.m. I'd only been asleep for 4 hours. The screen showed 17 missed calls from Brandon, 12 text messages, 3 voicemails. I turned the phone face down and went back to sleep. When I woke again at 10 a.m., the number had grown. 29 missed calls, 22 texts, 7 voicemails. I made myself a cup of coffee in Patty's sunny kitchen. She was already up, reading the newspaper at her kitchen table. Your phone's been buzzing nonstop for 3 hours, she said, looking at me over her reading glasses. I'm guessing they found your note. I'm guessing they did. Are you going to answer? I took a sip of coffee. It was good. Patty always made it strong the way I liked it. Eventually, when I'm ready, Patty folded her newspaper. I've known you for 23 years, since the kids were in elementary school together, and I have never seen you stand up for yourself like this. I should have done it 3 years ago. Better late than never. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a different number. I didn't recognize it. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello? Grandma Dot? A small, tearful voice. My heart clenched. Zoe? Grandma, where are you? Mom and Dad are fighting really bad. Dad's crying. Mom keeps yelling. Tyler's scared. Are you coming back? I closed my eyes. This was the part I'd been dreading. The part that made me question everything. Sweetheart, I'm at a friend's house. I'm safe. I'm okay. But why did you leave? Was it because of something I did? No, baby, no. This has nothing to do with you or Tyler. You two are perfect. This is about grown-up stuff. About respect. Mom said you stole something. She said you're trying to take our house. I felt anger flash hot in my chest. Of course Natalie would twist it. Make me the villain. Zoe, I didn't steal anything. I paused, trying to find words a 12-year-old would understand. I just needed to remind everyone that I'm not invisible. That I matter too. You matter to me, Grandma. You matter to Tyler. Tears pricked my eyes. I know, sweetheart. And that means everything to me. Can you put your dad on the phone? There was shuffling. Then Brandon's voice, rough with emotion. Mom! Hi, Brandon. Mom, what the hell is going on? You left in the middle of the night. You left this note about owning the house. Natalie's freaking out. The kids are upset. I can't just what? I kept my voice calm. I can't just leave? I can't just assert my legal rights to a property I own? I can't just stop letting your wife treat me like hired help. Silence. Brandon, do you know what she called me last night? Mom, she was just Maria. She called me Maria. She told her friends I was the housekeeper. For 3 hours, I served food and cleared plates, while 8 women I'd never met treated me like I was invisible. And you sat there and said nothing. I didn't know she was going to do that. You could have corrected her. You could have said, "That's my mother." But you didn't. You just looked at your plate and let it happen. More silence. Then quietly, "I'm sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't give me back 4 years of my life. Sorry doesn't give me back the $180,000 I spent on your house. That was your choice, Mom. We didn't force you, didn't you?" My voice hardened. Every time Natalie wanted something, you came to me. "Mom, we're short this month. Mom, can you help?" "Mom, just this once." And I said yes every single time because I was terrified that if I didn't, you'd decide you didn't need me anymore. I heard him inhale sharply. "You want to know the worst part?" I continued. "Last night I heard Natalie talking to her friends about retirement homes, about how you were planning to gently suggest I move to one. After I spent nearly $200,000 on your lives, you were planning to get rid of me." Mom, that was just talk. We weren't actually. Brandon, I'm 70 years old. I'm not stupid. I know when I'm being phased out. Where are you? Let me come get you. We can talk about this. No, Mom, please. You're scaring the kids. The kids will be fine. You and Natalie are scaring them with your fighting, not me with my leaving. So, what happens now? You're just gone? You're taking the house? I'm asserting my legal rights. I'll have my attorney contact you tomorrow. Your attorney? His voice rose. You hired an attorney? Mom, this is family. We don't need lawyers. You're right. We didn't need lawyers. We needed respect. But since you couldn't give me that, lawyers it is. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt strangely calm, powerful even. Patty was watching me with something like awe. "Did you just hang up on your son?" I did. Good for you. My phone immediately started ringing again. I silenced it. "What now?" Patty asked. "Now I wait until tomorrow. Helen, my attorney, said to bring everything to her office at 9 a.m. After that, we'll see. And if they show up here, they don't know where you live." I never told them. What if they figure it out? I looked at my friend, this woman who'd opened her home to me without hesitation. "Then you don't let them in. And if they don't leave, we call the police." Patty nodded slowly. "I always knew I liked you, Dot. But I'm discovering I might love you." Despite everything, I smiled. That afternoon, I went through every document in my filing box. I organized everything chronologically. I made a spreadsheet on Patty's old laptop, listing every expense. Down payment, $80,000. Kitchen renovation, $45,000. Master bathroom remodel, $28,000. Landscaping, $22,000. Roof repair, $18,000. New appliances, $12,000. Hardwood floor refinishing, $11,000. HVAC system replacement, $9,000. Fence replacement, $4,500. Garage door and opener, $3,200. Painting, interior, $4,800. Plumbing repairs, $2,700. Electrical upgrades, $2,400. Window replacements, $8,900. Driveway resurfacing, $6,500. Guest bathroom renovation, $8,000. Total, $186,000. Even more than I'd remembered. Nearly $200,000 when I included smaller repairs I'd paid for. Broken appliances, pest control, tree trimming, gutter cleaning, and that didn't include the 4 years of free labor. The cooking, cleaning, childcare, driving. If I calculated that at minimum wage for a live-in housekeeper, about $35,000 per year, that was another. $140,000 in unpaid work. I was looking at a $340,000 investment in a house where I was treated like garbage. My phone buzzed with a new text. This time from Natalie. "Dorothy, you're being ridiculous. That house is ours. We have a mortgage. We've been paying it for 4 years. You can't just decide you own it because your name happened to end up on some paperwork. If you don't come back and resolve this like an adult, we're getting our own lawyer." I stared at that text for a long moment. Then I forwarded it to Helen with a note. "Is this a threat?" Helen responded within minutes. "Yes, and it's evidence. Save everything she sends you." I smiled and saved the text. Sunday evening, around 6 p.m., my phone rang from another unknown number. I debated answering, then decided why not. Hello? Dorothy, it's Chelsea. Natalie's friend? From last night? The blonde with the inflated lips who'd waved her wine glass at me? I remember. Listen, I feel terrible about last night. I had no idea you were Natalie's mother-in-law. She introduced you as hired help, and God, I'm so embarrassed. You should be. I wanted to apologize. And also to tell you, she lowered her voice. Natalie's been calling everyone from book club, telling her version of the story. She's saying you're trying to steal their house, that you're mentally unstable, that Brandon's worried about your mental health. Of course she is. But Dorothy, I've been thinking about it all day. The food last night was incredible. The house is gorgeous, and Natalie's never been that good at cooking or decorating. I'm starting to think that I did all of it? Yeah, I did. I paid for the renovations. I cooked every meal. I cleaned that house top to bottom every single day. Chelsea was quiet for a moment. Jesus, and she called you the housekeeper. She called me Maria. That's not even your name. No, it's not. Dorothy, for what it's worth, I'm telling everyone the truth. What Natalie did was disgusting. If my mother-in-law had done even half of what you did, I'd be kissing her feet. Thank you, Chelsea. And Dorothy? Take them for everything you can. They deserve it. After she hung up, I sat back and processed that conversation. The story was getting out. The social circle Natalie cared so much about was hearing what really happened. Good. Monday morning at 8:45 a.m., Patty drove me to Helen Winter's office. It was in a modern building downtown, all glass and steel. Helen met me in the lobby, a tall woman in her mid-40s with natural hair and a sharp navy suit. Dorothy, she shook my hand firmly. Let's go upstairs and figure this out. Her office was impressive. Law degrees from Stanford. Awards from various legal organizations. A photo of her with the Colorado governor. I'd chosen well. Show me everything, Helen said, sitting across from me with a yellow legal pad. I laid it out. The house deed with my name on it. The receipts. The bank statements. The spreadsheet I'd made showing every expense. Helen went through it all methodically, making notes, occasionally whistling under her breath. Dorothy, she finally said, this is one of the strongest cases I've seen in my 15 years practicing real estate law. You have documentation of everything. Your name is legally on the deed. You've invested substantially more than the other owners. So what are my options? Helen leaned back in her chair. Several. Option 1, force a sale. Since you're a co-owner, you can petition the court to force the sale of the property. The proceeds would be split according to ownership percentage and contribution. What would that mean? The house would sell, probably for around $450,000 in the current market. After paying off the mortgage, there'd be about $200,000 left. You'd get your $186,000 investment back first, plus your 33% ownership share of what remains. And Brandon and Natalie would be left with very little, maybe $20,000 between them, if that. I absorbed that. Option 2, they buy you out. They pay you for your 33% ownership plus all the improvements you paid for. That would be around $240,000 total. Can they afford that? Helen smiled grimly. That's their problem, not yours. Option 3, you buy them out. You pay them for their portion of the equity and assume the mortgage. I can't afford that on my Social Security. Then that's not a viable option. Option 4, she paused. This is the interesting one. You could charge them rent for living in your portion of the house. Since you own 33%, they're essentially your tenants for that third. At market rate, that's about $800 a month they'd owe you, backdated to when you moved in. My eyes widened. 4 years of back rent? $3,800 to be exact, plus ongoing rent if they continue to live there. Would a court really enforce that? With your documentation? Absolutely. You can also sue for the value of your labor, the cooking, cleaning, childcare. There's legal precedent for family members who provide services expecting compensation. My head was spinning. What do you recommend? Helen looked at me directly. What do you want, Dorothy? Do you want the money? Or do you want them to understand what they did? I stopped thinking. I want my dignity back. I want them to know I'm not a doormat. And I want enough money to live independently for the rest of my life. Then here's what I suggest. We offer them a choice. They can buy you out for $240,000 within 90 days, or you force the sale. Either way, you get your money and your freedom. And if they can't pay, then the house sells, and they have to find somewhere else to live. Dorothy, I'm going to be blunt. They're going to try to negotiate. They're going to cry poor. They're going to use the grandchildren as leverage. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Saturday night, about being called Maria, About hearing them plan to ship me to a retirement home. I'm prepared. Good. Let's draft the letter. We spent 2 hours crafting a formal legal letter. Helen was precise, laying out every fact, every document, every legal claim. By the time we finished, it was a 10-page document that left no room for argument. I'll have this delivered to their home by courier today, Helen said. They'll have 48 hours to respond. What if they try to call me? Refer them to me. All communication goes through me now. You don't talk to them. You don't negotiate. That's what I'm here for. I left Helen's office feeling lighter than I had in years. The courier delivered the letter at 3:17 p.m. I know because Brandon called me at 3:23, his voice shaking with rage. Mom, what the hell is this? $240,000? Are you insane? We don't have that kind of money. Brandon, my attorney instructed me not to speak with you directly. Please contact Helen Winters if you... This is extortion. You're trying to destroy us. I'm asserting my legal rights. Over what? Because Natalie called you the wrong name? Because you're having some kind of elderly crisis? That stung. Elderly crisis? Is that what you think this is? What else could it be? You're acting crazy. You're trying to take our house, our kids' home because your feelings got hurt. Brandon, I spent $186,000 on that house. I have proof of every dollar. I own 33% of it legally. I'm not trying to take anything. I'm trying to get back what's mine. That money was a gift. No, it was an investment, and investments get repaid. We can't pay you $240,000. We don't have it. We'd have to sell the house. Then sell the house. Where are we supposed to go? What about Zoe and Tyler? What about their school? Brandon, you should have thought about that before you let your wife treat me like a servant for 4 years. One night. One bad night. And you're destroying our entire life over it? It wasn't one night, I said, my voice shaking now. It was 4 years. 4 years of being taken for granted. 4 years of paying your bills and raising your kids and cleaning your house while you both acted like I was lucky to be there. 4 years of being invisible. You're not invisible. We appreciate everything you have 48 hours to respond to my attorney. Goodbye, Brandon. I hung up, turned off my phone, and burst into tears. Patty held me while I cried. Not sad tears, angry tears, relieved tears, years of suppressed emotion finally breaking free. Did I do the right thing? I asked her when I could speak again. Honey, you did the only thing. Tuesday morning, Helen called. They hired an attorney. Gerald Moss, he's good, but he's already seen the case. Dorothy, he knows they don't have a leg to stand on. So what happens now? He's requesting a meeting. All parties present. He wants to negotiate. Should I go? Yes, but Dorothy, prepare yourself. They're going to pull out every emotional manipulation in the book. They're going to bring the kids. They're going to cry. They're going to promise things. Do not cave. The meeting was set for Thursday at 2 p.m. in Helen's conference room. Wednesday evening, I got a text from Zoe. Grandma, please come home. Mom's crying all the time. Dad's not eating. They're saying we might have to move. I'm scared. Please fix this. I love you. I stared at that text for 20 minutes. Then I called Helen. They're using the kids, I said. I know. I expected it. Are you wavering? I don't know. Maybe we can work something out. Some kind of payment plan. I don't want to hurt the children. Dorothy, listen to me carefully. If you back down now, nothing will change. They'll promise you the world, but the moment you move back in, you'll be Maria the housekeeper again. Is that what you want? No. Then stay strong. We're meeting tomorrow. Let's hear what they have to say. Thursday at 2 p.m., I walked into Helen's conference room. My hands were shaking, but my spine was steel. Brandon was already there with Natalie and their attorney. Brandon looked exhausted. Natalie's eyes were red and puffy. But when she saw me, I saw a flash of anger behind the tears. Mom, Brandon started. Helen held up her hand. No direct communication. Everything goes through counsel. Gerald Moss, their attorney, was a man in his 60s with silver hair and an expensive suit. He opened a folder. My clients would like to propose a settlement, he began. They acknowledge Mrs. Harrison's contributions to the property. They're prepared to offer $80,000, her initial down payment, to be paid over 5 years in monthly installments of $1,333. Helen didn't even blink. No, Ms. Winters, that's a fair... Mr. Moss, your clients owe my client $186,000 in documented improvements, plus her 33% ownership stake. Your offer doesn't even cover half of the improvements, let alone her ownership interest. My clients don't have $240,000. Then they should sell the house. Natalie spoke up, her voice breaking. "We have children. This is their home. You can't just throw us out on the street." Helen looked at her coolly. "Mrs. Harrison is not throwing anyone out. She's simply asserting her legal rights to property she owns and paid to improve. She gave us that money." Natalie's voice rose. "She offered. We didn't force her. Do you have any documentation showing these were gifts? Any written agreement?" Silence. "That's what I thought," Helen continued. "In the absence of documentation, these are considered loans or investments. And investments get repaid." Brandon leaned forward. "Mom, please. I know we messed up. I know Natalie shouldn't have said what she said. But we can fix this. Come home. We'll treat you better. We'll put your name on the mortgage. Mr. Harrison," Helen interrupted, "you're not negotiating with your mother. You're negotiating with her attorney. And my client's terms are clear." Gerald tried again. "What if we propose $120,000 paid over 7 years? No, $150,000, 10 years? No. Ms. Winters, you're being unreasonable. Mr. Moss, your clients treated my client like an unpaid servant for 4 years. They took nearly $200,000 from her. They humiliated her in front of guests. They planned to institutionalize her. And now they want to pay her back with an installment plan that would take a decade? That's not reasonable. That's insulting." The room fell silent. Finally, Gerald spoke quietly. "What if they refinance? Take out a home equity loan for $240,000? They could pay Mrs. Harrison immediately." Helen looked at me. I nodded slightly. "That would be acceptable," Helen said. "Contingent on Mrs. Harrison's approval of the timeline and terms. They'd need 90 days to arrange financing. 60 days. And if the refinancing falls through, the house goes up for sale immediately." Gerald looked at Brandon and Natalie. They whispered together for a long moment. "Agreed," Gerald finally said. "One more thing," Helen added. "Mrs. Harrison will need the $240,000 payment confirmed in writing, along with a full release of any claim to future contact or support. Once she's paid, she's under no obligation to provide childcare, financial assistance, or housing to your clients ever again. That's acceptable." Papers were drawn up. Both sides signed. As we stood to leave, Brandon caught my arm. "Mom, please, can we just talk? Just for a minute?" Helen started to intervene, but I nodded. "It's okay." Brandon and I stepped out into the hallway. Natalie stayed in the conference room. "I'm sorry," Brandon said, and he was crying. "I'm so sorry for all of it. You're my mom. You raised me. You taught me to treat people with respect, and I forgot all of that. I forgot you." "Yes, you did. Can you forgive me?" I looked at my son. This man I'd raised, who'd failed me in every way that mattered. "Someday, maybe," I said. "But Brandon, what you and Natalie did, that doesn't just go away because you're sorry. You took advantage of me. You used me. And when I finally stood up for myself, you called me crazy. I didn't mean—" "You did mean it. In that moment, you meant it." I took a breath. "I love you. You're my son, and I'll always love you. But I can't trust you. Not anymore. Maybe not ever again. So that's it? You're just gone from our lives? I'm getting my money and my dignity back. After that, we'll see. What about Zoe and Tyler?" That hurt. I love those kids more than anything. "But Brandon, you used them as weapons. You had Zoe text me to try to guilt me into giving up my legal rights. That's not okay. She wanted to text you. I didn't make her. But you didn't stop her either." He looked down. "What do I tell them? Tell them the truth. That Grandma needed to take care of herself for once. And that sometimes loving someone means having boundaries." I walked away and didn't look back. 60 days later, on a Thursday afternoon in early January, $240,000 was deposited into my bank account. I sat in Patty's living room and stared at the number on my screen. I was free. I was 70 years old, and I was finally, completely free. With $240,000 in my bank account, I did something I hadn't done in 4 years. I made decisions solely for myself. The first thing I did was buy a car. Not a used sedan like I'd always driven. Not something practical that Brandon would approve of. I bought a cherry red Honda CR-V with heated seats and a sunroof. The salesman asked if I wanted to test drive it. "I'm 70 years old," I told him. "I've been driving for 54 years. I know what I want." I drove it off the lot with the sunroof open, even though it was January in Colorado, even though it was freezing. Because I could, the second thing I did was find my own place. Not a retirement community. Not an apartment. A small, two-bedroom condo in a quiet neighborhood 15 minutes from downtown Denver. It was on the third floor of a well-maintained building with mountain views from the balcony. Hardwood floors, a kitchen with granite countertops, a master bedroom with an ensuite bathroom, and most importantly, it was mine. Only mine. The mortgage was $200 a month, easily covered by my Social Security and the interest from my remaining investment. I could afford it. I could afford everything. I closed on the condo 3 weeks after receiving the settlement money. Moving day was a Saturday in late January. Patty helped me, along with 2 of her sons who carried the furniture I'd bought. A new couch, a new bed, a new dining table. Everything new. Everything without memories of being invisible. "You did it, Dot," Patty said as we stood on my balcony, looking out at the mountains. "You really did it." "I did," I said, and for the first time in 4 years, I felt proud of myself. I spent the first month in my condo doing nothing. Absolutely nothing productive. I slept until 9 a.m. I made coffee and sat on my balcony watching the sunrise. I read novels I'd been meaning to read for years. I took long walks through the neighborhood. I went to matinee movies by myself. I ate dinner at 4 p.m. if I felt like it, or at 9 p.m., or sometimes I just had ice cream for dinner. No one needed me. No one was waiting for me. No one was judging me. It was glorious. But by the end of February, the silence started to feel less peaceful and more lonely. I missed having purpose. I missed feeling useful. I just didn't miss being used. I joined a book club at the local library. Women my age who actually read the books and had thoughtful discussions. I volunteered at a food bank on Tuesday mornings. I took a watercolor painting class at the community center on Thursday afternoons. I made friends. Real friends, not people who wanted something from me. One afternoon in March, I came home from my painting class to find an envelope slipped under my door. No stamp. Hand-delivered. Inside was a letter written in a child's careful handwriting. "Dear Grandma Dot, I miss you so much. I know you and Mom and Dad had a big fight about the house and money. Dad explained some of it to me. He said you needed to take care of yourself, and that's why you left. I'm not mad at you. Tyler's not mad either. We just miss you. Mom is different now. She's nicer. She says please and thank you a lot. She asked me to help her cook dinner last week, and she said, 'Your grandma taught me that recipe.' I think she misses you too, even though she doesn't say it. Could we maybe see you sometime? Just me and Tyler? We could come to your new place. Dad said it has a view of the mountains." "That sounds pretty. I love you, Grandma. Zoe P.S. Tyler says he loves you too, and he wants to show you his science project about volcanoes." I read that letter 3 times, crying harder each time. Then I called Brandon. He answered on the first ring. "Mom? You gave Zoe my address," she asked. I couldn't say no. "Mom, she misses you so much." "They both do. And Natalie? How does she feel about the kids seeing me?" A long pause. "She's processing. But she agreed that the kids should be able to see their grandmother if they want to." How generous of her. "Mom, please. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But the kids didn't do anything wrong. Can they see you, please?" I looked around my quiet, peaceful condo. My sanctuary, my space. Could I let them in without letting the pain back in? "Saturday," I finally said. "Tippy, you can bring them here. You drop them off and come back in 2 hours. You don't come in." Okay, thank you, Mom. Thank you so much." "Brandon? If Natalie tries to use this as an opportunity to contact me, if she sends messages through the kids, if she tries to manipulate this situation in any way, it stops immediately. Do you understand?" "I understand. I promise." That Saturday, I cleaned my already clean condo 3 times. I baked cookies. I bought juice boxes. I put fresh flowers on the dining table. At exactly 2 p.m., my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Zoe and Tyler standing there, both suddenly shy. Brandon stood behind them in the hallway, but he didn't try to come in. "Hi, Grandma," Zoe said quietly. "Hi, baby." I knelt down, my knees protested. But I didn't care, and opened my arms. They both crashed into me, hugging me so tightly I could barely breathe. "I missed you," Tyler said into my shoulder. He was crying. "I missed you too, both of you, so much." Over their heads, I looked at Brandon. He was crying too, but he nodded once and turned to leave. 2 hours, I called after him. 2 hours, he confirmed, and disappeared down the hallway. I brought the kids inside. They looked around with wide eyes. "This is so cool, Grandma," Tyler said. "Can we see the balcony?" We stood on the balcony together, looking at the mountains. I pointed out Pikes Peak in the distance. "Do you like living here?" Zoe asked carefully. "I do, sweetheart. Very much. Better than our house." I chose my words carefully. "I like having my own space, my own home, where I can make my own choices. Were you sad at our house?" The question surprised me with its directness. But Zoe had always been perceptive. "Sometimes," I admitted. "Sometimes I felt like I didn't matter very much." "You matter to me," she said firmly. "You matter a lot. I know, baby. And that helps." We spent the next 2 hours catching up. Tyler showed me pictures of his volcano project on his iPad. It had erupted with baking soda and vinegar and apparently made a huge mess in the kitchen. Zoe told me about the book she was reading, about her best friend's drama, about how she was trying out for the school play. They told me that Natalie had started cooking more, that she sometimes burned things, and that Tyler had said Grandma's spaghetti was better, and Natalie had actually agreed instead of getting mad. They told me that their dad was sad a lot, that he looked at old photos of me with them and got quiet. They told me that the house felt emptier now, even though I'd only lived in one small bedroom. "Do you think you'll ever come back?" Tyler asked as we sat on my couch eating cookies. "No, sweetheart. I don't think so." "Because of what Mom did?" "At the party?" So they knew. I wondered how much Brandon had told them. "That was part of it," I said. "But it was lots of things, built up over a long time. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes in how they treat each other. And sometimes those mistakes hurt so much that you can't go back to how things were. But you still love us, right?" Zoe's voice was small. "Oh, honey. Yes. I love you both more than anything in the whole world. Me leaving that house had nothing to do with you. It was about me needing to respect myself." "Dad said you taught him about respecting people when he was little," Tyler said. "He said he forgot the lesson and now he's trying to remember it." That made my throat tight. "Your dad's a good man. He just made some bad choices. We all do sometimes." When Brandon came back to pick them up, the kids hugged me for a long time. "Can we come back next week?" Zoe asked. I looked at Brandon. He nodded. "Yes," I said. "Next Saturday. Same time." After they left, I sat on my couch and cried. Not sad tears. Not exactly happy tears either, just overwhelmed tears. Tears of love and loss and hope all mixed together. The Saturday visits became a routine. Every week, Brandon would drop the kids off at 2 p.m. and pick them up at 4 p.m. We'd bake together, or I'd help with homework, or we'd just talk. I never asked about Natalie. The kids sometimes mentioned her, usually about something funny she'd done, or how she'd actually praised Tyler's artwork, or how she'd apologized for snapping at Zoe. Small changes, maybe real ones. In April, Brandon asked if he could come in for a minute when he picked up the kids. I hesitated, then agreed. He stood awkwardly in my entryway, looking around at the space I'd created. The watercolor paintings I'd made in class hanging on the walls. The plants on the balcony. The books on the shelves. "It's really nice, Mom," he said. "Peaceful. Thank you." I've been wanting to say something. To really apologize. Not just a quick "I'm sorry," but a real apology. I waited. "I failed you," he continued, his voice thick. "I let Natalie treat you terribly. I let you pay for everything. I took advantage of your love. I took advantage of your loneliness after Dad died. And when you finally stood up for yourself, I tried to make you feel crazy for it." He looked at me directly. "You deserved better. You deserved so much better. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Thank you," I said quietly. "That means something. Is there any way we can fix this? Not go back to how things were? I know that's impossible. But move forward somehow." "I don't know, Brandon. I honestly don't know. I'm in therapy now," he said. "We both are, together and separately. Natalie's therapist is helping her understand why she treated you the way she did. Some of it is about her own mother, her own insecurities. Not an excuse," he added quickly. "Just an explanation." "Good. That's good. She wants to apologize to you. Face to face. She's written you letters but keeps throwing them away because she says they're not good enough. I'm not ready for that yet." "I understand. Just, if you ever are, she'll be ready." In May, Patty and I took a trip to Santa Fe. Just the two of us, for a long weekend. We visited art galleries, ate at fancy restaurants, stayed up late drinking wine and laughing. "You're different," Patty said as we watched the sunset from our hotel balcony. "Lighter somehow. I feel lighter. like I'd been carrying something heavy for years and finally put it down. Any regrets? I thought about that. I regret not standing up for myself sooner. I regret giving them so much money without protecting myself. But leaving, fighting back? No regrets about that. In June, on a Thursday afternoon, I came home from my volunteer shift at the food bank to find someone sitting outside my building. Natalie. She stood up when she saw me, looking nervous. She'd lost weight. Her designer clothes hung a little loose. She wasn't wearing makeup. "Dorothy, please don't run. I just want to talk. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Every instinct screamed at me to walk past her, to shut the door in her face. But I'd spent 4 years being invisible. I wasn't going to make someone else invisible, even someone who'd done it to me. 5 minutes, I said. In the lobby. Not in my apartment. We sat in the building's small lobby, in chairs by the window. Natalie took a shaky breath. "I've been trying to write you a letter for 3 months. I've started 50 times. They all sound hollow, like excuses. So why are you here? Because I owe you the truth. Face to face." She looked at her hands. "I treated you horribly. Worse than horribly. I used you. I demeaned you. I erased you. Yes, you did. I told myself stories to justify it. That you were retired anyway, you had time. That you were living in our house for free. That we were doing you a favor. But those were lies. I knew what I was doing was wrong. And I did it anyway." She finally looked up at me. "The dinner party. Calling you Maria. That was the worst thing I've ever done to another human being. I took someone who'd given me everything, and I made her invisible to make myself look important to women I don't even like." I was silent, just listening. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Natalie continued. "I don't forgive myself, but I needed you to know. I see it now. I see what I did. I see who I became, and I'm trying to be different." "Why?" I asked. "Why now?" "Because when you left, when we got that legal letter, I looked at myself clearly for the first time in years, and I was disgusted. I had become exactly like—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "My mother worked as a housekeeper for rich families. She was treated like garbage, invisible, disposable. I spent my whole childhood watching her be humiliated. And then I grew up and did the exact same thing to you." She started crying. "I became what I hated most. And I didn't even see it until you made me see it." I handed her a tissue from my purse. "I'm in therapy 3 times a week," she said, wiping her eyes. "Working through why I needed to put you down to feel big. Why I needed to prove I was successful by having an unpaid servant. My therapist says it was about control, about insecurity, about—" She waved her hand. "It doesn't matter. None of it excuses what I did. No, it doesn't. I know you don't owe me anything. You don't owe me forgiveness or reconciliation or even this conversation. But Dorothy, I need you to know, you changed my life. By leaving, by standing up for yourself. You showed me what dignity looks like, what self-respect looks like. And you showed my daughter that women don't have to accept being treated badly just because it's family. That got my attention. Zoe? She told me last week, if someone treats you like Grandma was treated, you leave. That's what strong women do. She's 12 years old and she already knows to stand up for herself because you showed her how." We sat in silence for a moment. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I finally said. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. What you did hurt too much." "I know, but I appreciate you coming here. I appreciate you seeing it. That's more than I deserve." Natalie stood up. "I won't bother you again. But if you ever want to talk, or if you need anything at all, I'm here." She walked to the door, then turned back. "One more thing. I told all my friends the truth. About the dinner party, about what I did. Chelsea already knew, but the others didn't. I made sure they all knew that you weren't the housekeeper. You were the woman who paid for my house while I treated you like trash. Some of them don't talk to me anymore, but I needed to set the record straight. After she left, I sat in the lobby for a long time, processing. I didn't forgive her. Not yet, maybe not ever, but for the first time, I felt like maybe someday I could. In August, I went back to therapy myself. Not because I was falling apart, but because I wanted to process everything that had happened. To understand my own patterns, why I'd given so much, why I'd accepted so little. My therapist, Dr. Chen, was patient and insightful. "You were afraid of being alone," she said in one of our sessions. "After your husband died, you were terrified of ending up isolated. So when Brandon offered you a place in his family, you grabbed onto it. And you held on so tightly that you accepted unacceptable treatment because you thought it was better than being alone. But now I am alone, I said. And I'm fine. You're not alone. You have Patty, you have your book club, you have your grandchildren, you have volunteer work and hobbies and purpose. You have community. What you don't have is people who make you feel worthless, she smiled. That's not loneliness, Dorothy. That's freedom. In September, on Zoe's 13th birthday, Brandon asked if I would come to the party. Just family, he said. The kids want you there. I want you there. And Natalie? She says it's your choice. That she'll stay in another room if you're uncomfortable. That she'll leave if you ask her to. I thought about it for 3 days. Then I said yes. The party was on a Saturday afternoon. I pulled up to the house I'd renovated, the house I'd lived in for 4 years, the house I'd left in the middle of the night. It looked the same, but different. The garden was a little overgrown. One of the shutters was crooked. Small things, but I noticed them. Brandon met me at the door. Mom, thank you for coming. Zoe and Tyler ran to hug me. Other family was there. My sister, my nephew, a few of Zoe's friends. Natalie stayed in the background. When our eyes met, she nodded once. I nodded back. That was enough. The party was nice. I watched Zoe blow out her candles, surrounded by people who loved her. I saw Brandon put his arm around her shoulders with genuine pride. I saw Natalie taking photos, and in one of them she made sure I was included. Small things, but they mattered. When it was time for me to leave, Tyler hugged me tight. I wish you still lived here, Grandma. I'm happy where I am, sweetheart, but I'm so glad I could come today. Brandon walked me to my car. It meant a lot. You being here? I'm doing it for the kids. I know. But still, thank you. As I drove away, I looked in my rearview mirror at the house getting smaller behind me, and I felt nothing. No regret, no longing, no pain. Just peace. 2 years after I left, on a Sunday in November, I hosted Thanksgiving at my condo for the first time. It was small, just Patty and her husband, my sister, and my nephew. No drama, no tension, just people who loved me and treated me with respect. We were just sitting down to eat when my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Zoe and Tyler standing there with a foil-covered dish. We made you sweet potato casserole, Zoe said. Using your recipe. We wanted to bring it ourselves. Behind them, in the parking lot, I saw Brandon's car. He waved but didn't get out. That's so sweet. Would you like to come in for a few minutes? They did. They met Patty and my sister. They had pie. They told me about their day. They'd had Thanksgiving dinner at home, but they'd asked if they could stop by to see me too. Dad said family should be together on Thanksgiving, Tyler explained. And your family. When they left, Patty looked at me with tears in her eyes. You did it. You set boundaries, you protected yourself, and you still have love in your life. I did, didn't I? That Christmas, I got a card from Natalie. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a note. Dorothy, this is the first installment of a debt I can never fully repay. Every Christmas for the next 20 years, you'll receive the same. It won't make up for what I took from you, but it's a start. I've also set up a college fund for Zoe and Tyler in your name. You gave so much to this family. I want to make sure they know it. I don't expect a response. I just wanted you to know that I'm still working on being better. Natalie, I deposited the check. Not because I needed the money, but because accepting it meant she was taking responsibility. That was growth. 3 years after I left, I was sitting on my balcony on a Sunday morning, drinking coffee and reading the paper, when my phone rang. Brandon. Mom, are you busy today? Just reading. Why? Can I come over? I want to talk to you about something. An hour later, he was sitting on my couch, holding a cup of coffee, looking nervous. I'm going to ask Natalie for a divorce, he said. I set down my own coffee. What? We've been in therapy for 3 years. We're better people now. Better parents. But we're not. We don't work as a couple anymore. Maybe we never did. We stayed together out of obligation, out of habit. But we're not happy. And the kids? They're old enough to understand. We'll do it right, respectful, collaborative. But Mom, I've realized something. I spent so many years just going along with whatever Natalie wanted because it was easier than having a spine. I didn't stand up for you. I didn't stand up for myself. I don't want to live like that anymore. So what will you do? She's keeping the house. She's refinanced again to buy out my half. I'm getting an apartment downtown. We'll split custody 50-50. The kids are actually okay with it. I think they've known for a while that we were just going through the motions. He looked at me. I wanted to tell you first. To ask, I don't know, for your blessing maybe? Or just to tell you that you taught me this. That sometimes walking away is the strongest thing you can do. I reached over and squeezed his hand. I'm proud of you. I'm finally becoming the man you raised me to be, he said. It just took me 45 years. Now, sitting here on my balcony on a Saturday morning in March, 4 years after I left that house in the middle of the night, I can say honestly, I'm happy. I'm 74 years old. I live alone by choice. I have friends, hobbies, purpose. I see my grandchildren every other weekend, sometimes at my place, sometimes at their dad's new apartment, occasionally at Natalie's house when she hosts family dinners. My relationship with Brandon has healed, slowly, carefully. We talk once a week. We have lunch once a month. We're rebuilding trust. Natalie and I are cordial. Not friends. Probably never will be, but she keeps her promises. The checks come every Christmas. She treats me with respect. She's become a better person, and I'm glad for that. Not for my sake, but for Zoe and Tyler's. Last week, Zoe came over to work on a school project about women who inspire you. She chose me. You walked away from people who hurt you, she said, as we sat at my dining table. Even though it was scary, even though it was family, you taught me that you can love someone and still protect yourself from them. That's right, sweetheart. When I grow up, I want to be strong like you. You already are, I told her, and she is. Both of them are. They're growing up watching a grandmother who stood up for herself, who knew her worth, who chose peace over performance. That's my legacy. Not the $180,000 I spent on a house. Not the 4 years of servitude. But this, teaching my grandchildren through my actions that self-respect is not selfish. This morning, as the sun rises over the Rocky Mountains and paints my balcony in shades of gold and pink, I think about the woman I was 4 years ago, the woman who smiled through humiliation, the woman who was called Maria and didn't correct it, the woman who packed a suitcase in the middle of the night. Terrified and desperate, she saved me. She found the courage to disappear so I could finally be seen. And now, sitting here in the home I chose, living the life I built, surrounded by love that doesn't cost me my dignity, I can say something I couldn't say for 4 long years. I am Dorothy Harrison, not Maria, not the housekeeper, not invisible, Dorothy, grandmother, friend, artist, volunteer, woman who knows her worth, and I am finally, completely, beautifully free. If this story moved you, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps me continue sharing stories that uncover the hidden truths of everyday life. There are so many more untold stories waiting to be revealed. Thank you for being here. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in their place? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share them with me in the comments below. On the screen, you can see 2 more life stories I strongly recommend. There are many more waiting on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story.